Here's something that I'd like to bring to you, wrapped up in cellophane, designed for you. Tell you what it's all about, it is without a doubt, swinging the latest style, service with a smile. If you want to swing and shout, kick your heels and get about, I'm an errand girl for rhythm, send me.
Well, good morning, Pippa, welcome to this little interview that we're going to do this morning.
I feel very honoured, Mel.
Yeah, it's good. Well, for those of you who don't know, Pippa is probably one of our leading jazz singers with a long and distinguished career in Australia, and there's more people that she's sung with than people she hasn't sung with, so it's very exciting to do it. Now, one of the first things that I wanted to just talk to you a little bit about is a little bit about your early life.
Okay. I probably remember more of that than I do about my present life. Born in Sri Lanka,
And did you live in Colombo?
For a very short time. My father was a doctor, and he worked for the government, and he was transferred to go and set up hospitals and stuff. So we went from
Right.
we had about 5 shifts, I think, living
Right.
all over the place.
All over. So, did you have brothers and sisters, or you?
I've got 3 brothers.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And
2 older and 1 younger.
Right. Okay. Good. So, when you were in Sri Lanka, were you exposed to music at an early age?
My mum played piano, and Dad was a party animal. He was, any party that they had or went to, Mum was put in front of the piano, and she'd play all these things for Dad to sing. He used to sing Abdullah Bulbul Amir and, the Mountains of the Morn and all this sort of stuff.
Yes.
And so, yes, we were very musical. And I remember the first time I was introduced to harmony was we'd sing, the boys and me, in the back seat, going up from the south of Sri Lanka to Colombo. We'd take a little road trip and we'd be singing, and things like Mary Ann and All Day All Night.
Yes.
And my brother used to sing the harmony, and I'd say, "Mum, he's doing it again. He's singing the wrong tune." So, I would have been, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, something like that.
Right. So, did you play any musical instruments yourself?
Yeah, look, I did learn piano for about 6 or 8 months, and then I got the sack from that because I was being taught to read and playing, sort of 2-note chords and very boring stuff. I used to, put in octave and play 3-note chords and things like that. And I'd practice and practice, and we'd go to this lesson, and she'd say, "You're not playing what's on the music." And I say, "But it's so boring, And I'd improvise, and
Yes.
I got whacked on the knuckles for it. And
Yeah.
in the end, she said, "I can't teach her."
No.
Because I had a good ear, and
Yes.
I used to play boogie woogie so the girls could dance in the I was in boarding school at the time.
Yes. Yeah.
And
So, how did you graduate from there to singing? Was that just a natural sort of?
everything happened by accident. It was just in the right place at the right time, I guess. When I came out, I hated school. Never did a stroke of work at school. I always just scraped by.
Yes.
And my last year at school, I think I passed 1 subject only.
Yes. My son had a thing about that. He said, if you get more than a pass, you're showing off.
Oh, yeah, well. But so I was walking home one day, and there was a little shop on my way home, and I saw this little guitar, little half-size guitar, and I thought, that looks like fun. And I had spent a lot of time with the Ludovic boys, Chris and Paul and David and all that. And I thought, they'd showed me a few chords on their guitars, you know, and I thought, oh, I might get it and see. And so I got myself a chord book and taught myself to play guitar. And because I never did any schoolwork, I'd come home from school and I'd practice. So, you know, I was practicing 2 or 3 hours a day, every day.
Yes.
And I became, you know, I was very excited when I could play a bar chord and things like that,
Yeah.
you know.
Well.
And I kept going. And I got actually quite good at it, if I say so myself. And I've ended up getting a few gigs in coffee shops and things like that,
Right.
you know.
Yes. This was before you really got into jazz.
Oh yeah, before I started. I never ever thought of being a singer. But somebody said, oh, you should go and sing at the Green Man, you know, things like that. I thought, okay. And I had more front than Myers. Nothing ever bothered me, nothing, you know, just...
Yes.
Somebody said, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that.
Well, that's wonderful. So what year how old were you when you came to Australia?
I think I was about 14.
14,
Yeah.
right.
Around about there.
Yes, around about that period. So who were your first contacts with jazz musicians?
Chris was my first real,
Chris.
yeah, because I knew he played in jazz band.
That's
Chris Ludwig.
Chris
Yeah.
Ludwig.
Chris
Yep.
Ludwig. Hi,
Yep.
Chris.
Yes. So at the time when you were first making contact with jazz musicians, you were doing some floor show days with pop and rock bands.
Yep. That again was an accident, you know. I was going out with this boy when I was about 17, 18. And we were on and we were off and we were on. Anyway, his parents took him overseas, and when he came back, we caught up again. And I brought him home. He said, do you want to go to driving or something tonight? And I went, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. He said, come home and I'll go and get changed, and we'll go. I'll go in front. I had to knock on the front door, because I wasn't turning on, I didn't get a key. I opened the door. Dad says, oh, you're home, good. And close. I said, hang on, Bill's out there. He said, I saw him. Close the door. I said, Dad, no, he's not coming in this house. As long as you live under my roof, my rules. And I thought, oh my Lord. So I went in my room, I packed my bag, and I left. That was the day I left home. And I went to his place. His parents loved me. You know, they had all... Bill rang and said, you know, she's coming to stay tonight. And they had the spare room made up for me. And I ended up marrying him. Madly in love with him. He gave me 2 kids. It was wonderful. And I had to find somewhere to live then, because I'd burnt my bridges with Dad. So I went to the Federal Hotel, because I had met one of Dad's Masonic mates there, Kevin O'Neill. And he'd heard me play guitar, because Dad said, bring your guitar, play something, so I did. And he said he wanted to manage me. And I thought, yeah, you know, whatever. So I went and saw him and I said, Kevin, I need a job and I need somewhere to stay. So he went in and had a chat to the general manager, and he said, oh, we're opening a beer and bite, the main dining room, you know, and we're putting on floor shows there. We need somebody to manage it. Well, they called me the manager. Well, I couldn't manage myself out of a paper bag, forget it. But I was really the door bitch, you know.
Yes.
But it was I just had to look after the guests and make sure they had drinks and eats and whatever. And every night they had a floor show. And John happened to be in the audience. Actually, I used to, in my room, in the hotel, I used to play my guitar and sing in the afternoons, because I only worked at night. And one of the girls from the band was passing and heard me, and then when it came down to work that night, they said, you should get up and sing with us. And I went, he's joking. No, come on. You must know all those songs. And I said, yeah, I do. But so they got me up to sit in with them. John Haddad happened to be there. And when I got off the stage, I was very nervous, but I got off the stage and he said, you know, and I said, oh my Lord, I shouldn't have done that, should I? He said, no, I found it very interesting. I've just bought the Mentone Hotel and I'm looking for some cheap entertainment there. You see a floor show here every night for the last few months. You know what it's all about. Put a show together, I'll give you a job. I went, okay. So I put a show together, songs, you know, pop songs of the time, and he gave me a job. At the time I was earning, I think it was $37.90 a week.
Yeah.
And I said, cheap, oh, maybe I'll get $10, $15 maybe, half-hour show. Thank you, I'll take that. So I said, how much are you going to pay me, John? And he said, I'll give you $40. That's more than I earn in a week, you know. And that's how I started.
Yeah.
And I went and got all the outfits and all
Yep.
that, and put the show together, got some charts written, and never looked back.
So, did you ever have any formal training as a singer?
No.
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 Well,
I've been doing floor shows for about 4 or 5 years, 4 years maybe, and I was getting a lot of work, you know. I kept thought, hey, I know I can't sing properly, but what the hell, they're giving me work, I'll take it, thank you very much. Because I was working almost every night.
yes.
And I thought, oh, I need to go and learn how to sing properly and stop getting hoarse, you know.
Yes.
And so I went to Dana DeBarry, and she listened to me and she got me to sing some scales, and then she said, look, I've heard you sing, and I really can't teach you, do everything wrong, and I would change your voice. To sing legit, you'd change, you know, it'd change your voice. And so he gave me some exercises, some breathing exercises, and told me some things not to do. And so I did a few exercises for a few months and kept singing. And then later on, again, I thought, no, I need singing lessons. I'm losing my voice.
Yes.
Went to somebody else.
Yes.
And Jo, she'd heard me sing, and she said, Pippa, what do you want singing lessons? I said, I need to stop losing my voice, you know. So she, again, gave me all these same exercises and breathing exercises and everything, and sent me on my way and said, you're wasting your money, don't come here, you know, you don't need this. And I thought, yes I do. So then a few years later I went and saw Orman Douglas, and he said, sing these scales, and I sang them very badly because I can't sing scales. And he said, you've got a huge range, because I went down from a G, an octave and a half below middle C, up to a high B.
Yes.
Because I used to sing in a choir, school choir, wonderful. And it was, he said, why do you want to learn to sing? And I said, because I keep losing my voice. I sing almost every night. He said, you're a working singer. And I went, yeah. Where do you work? And at the time I was doing Whiskey A Go-Go. And he said, when are you there? I said, I'll be there tomorrow night. And he said, I have to come in, because I can't believe that anybody would hire you, from what I heard. So during the show, I was doing a floor show. During the show I saw him up the back there, and I had another lesson booked in with him, and I walked in and he said, I want to hear that voice I heard on stage. And I said, give me a song to sing and I'll give you that voice, but I can't sing scales. And he said, no. He said, I can't teach you. And he said the same thing. He said, if I teach you to sing legitimately, you would lose all that timbre in your voice. You know, forget it. Just whatever you're doing,
Keep doing it.
Keep doing it, and be kind to your voice. You know what's going to hurt it.
Yeah.
You must know.
Well, that's fantastic. So you really were just a natural. That's it. It's part of the musical that you spoke about.
Yeah.
Well, now you talked about getting across, and your first contact with jazz with people like Kevin Hocking, for example.
Yeah. Well, when I was doing floor shows, I had my charts and everything, and I had a lot of trouble with them. I mean, bands that I work with, they would rehearse themselves, so they were great.
Yeah.
But when they come to backing the singer, my charts weren't doing me a lot of favours, you know. And Kevin got, when I went to one gig in Frankston, Kevin Hocking was there with Leon Heel and Billy Hyde's son, Gary
Hyde, yep.
Yeah, and Bobby Vinnie,
Bob,
they
yep.
were in the band. And Kevin said, what have you got on bar such and such? And you know, they discussed these charts. There's a bar missing. You know, all my charts were, you know, they weren't right. That's why everybody was stuffing up so much.
Yeah.
So they fixed it.
Right.
That was my first introduction into some really top-notch musicians.
Professional people
Professional,
who
yeah.
knew how to do arrangements.
Yeah.
Well, when you talk about some of the bands that you associated with, and you know, when you have a look on the museum's database, there's 130 entries of bands that you've been involved with, and
Goodness, really?
Yeah,
130.
Yeah, 130, and I mean, perhaps you might just tell us about some of the ones that you were associated with that you.
Well, the first jazz band I worked with was Chris's band.
That was the New Harlem.
The New Harlem Jazz Band. In fact, he played at my wedding. And because I'd been doing floor shows, he said, come up and do a night. I said, I don't sing jazz, you know. And he said, no, you do bass, you know, Basin Street, and, you know, Bill Bailey and all this sort of stuff. And I said, yeah, you know. He said, come on, just get up and do it. So I did. And I did it just before I left the reception.
Yes.
And I was dreading doing the circle thing, you know.
Yes.
So what did I do? I said, can you play Wish Me Luck as You Wave Me Goodbye? I went and got changed.
Yes.
And in my going away outfit. And I went up and sang with them. And I also finished off with Wish Me Luck. And I waved goodbye and I took off.
What a wonderful way to sneak out of that wedding service.
Oh, that was a circus or a wedding. We had to book the...
Well, so did you have to change your singing style very much to transition into jazz?
I just sang the songs as I felt them.
Yeah.
See, growing up, I never really had a record player or tape deck or anything, you know. I just heard Mum play her gramophone, and she would play her 78s, you know, and listen, and then just play them on the piano. She had a fantastic ear. And so that was the only music sort of that I was exposed to at home.
Yes.
And, you know, she'd pick all the passing chords and everything. She was very good. Anyway, but she suffered from stage fright. She couldn't do it on stage.
Yes.
I never had any access to music. My brother had records, and they had a stereo system.
Yep.
I wasn't allowed to touch it.
Yes.
So I'd listen to his records and the radio maybe. That was it.
Yes.
So I liked. He had a Peggy Lee album which I loved.
Yes.
And it had Black Coffee and Love Me or Leave Me on it.
Yes.
And I love those songs. And I thought, gee, that's so nice. That, you know, I remember those songs and they were nice. And I just used to, when he wasn't watching, I used to go and put it on and listen to it. Yeah. And it was ingrained in my brain. So when I started singing jazz, I, you know, sort of...
You picked up on all those
things. But apart from that, I really knew nothing about jazz, you know. Yeah. In fact, when I started working with Chris, and I started working with Chris because I'd split up with my husband and I'd stuck at home with 2 kids for about 6 weeks, and I thought, I've got to get out of this house. So I said to Mum, can you look after the kids? And I rang Chris and I said, can I come sit at the band table? I don't want to be sitting at the bar like a shag on a rock. And he said, yeah, come sit. So, and then at the end of the night, he got me to get up and sing a couple of numbers. And the owner of Athel's Abbey, you remember Athel's Abbey?
Yes.
He offered me a job.
Yeah.
guest vocalist with New Harlem.
Yeah.
That was the start of my jazz career.
Yes. Well, that was certainly good. So these people like Peggy Lee and others, did they help you in your selection of songs? You know,
Not really. Chris gave me a list of 13 or 14 songs to learn to work with him.
Yes.
Which I did. Just listen to the tune.
Yes.
He gave me a recording of it. Wrote down the words, and then I just used to sing I just learned the words.
Did you sing in the shower when you're practicing?
I don't think I did actually. I rarely sing at home.
Right.
Very rarely.
Right.
But sometimes I sing in the shower. When I'm really nervous about a gig the next day, I find myself at night, I'm in the shower and I think, how does that song go again? And I'd start singing. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I can still sing. It's okay.
Yeah.
Still singing tune.
So when you started out and forming your own group,
yeah,
who wrote the charts for you then?
that was another accident. I was working with Frankie Gow and Ronnie Ellum and people like that at the Spread Eagle Hotel. I worked there for about 4.5 years. And Helen Jowsey used to come and sit in sometimes, and she'd be doing a gig in the city or something, and
Yeah.
after the gig she'd come round and go home with Neil, because he was on bass.
Yeah.
And Montsalvat rang me and said, would you like to do the Montsalvat Jazz Festival? And I said, I'd love to. Who do you want me to work with? Because at that stage I was just guest vocalist for different bands. Which band do you want me to work with? He said, your band. And I went, okay.
The band that you didn't have.
That's right. So I went to Neil and I said, Neil, I have to put a band together for Montsalvat. Do you want to do it? And he went, oh yeah. And he said, who you got in the band? I said, well, I know who I'd like. I said, I haven't got the rest of the band. He said, well, who would you like? And I said, I know who I'd like. And that was his wife, Helen.
Yeah.
And he said, so are we going to ask her? And I said, she won't want to work with me. Like I was, rank amateur. And he said, I said, can you ask her for me? He said, no, you ring her, your band, you ring her. He made me ring her. And he probably told her I was going to ring her anyway. And she agreed to do it. And so
That was about 1990, I think,
yes,
Montsalvat.
It was,
wasn't it?
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. My first Montsalvat Jazz Festival. And so I went round to her place and she said, what do you want to do? And I've got a list of songs. And she said, okay, well, we went through them, we worked out the keys, and she said, I'll jot down some chords and we'll see how we go. So a couple of weeks later she called me and I went back there and she played the arrangements to me. And I said, it's fantastic. I'd never ever worked with anybody so fantastic to work with. It was just awesome. And I said, okay, so now, and she said, who else you got in the band? And she'd suggested Ronnie Sandilands
Yes.
and Ronnie Trigg, and I
Yeah.
rang and asked them if they'd do it. They said yes. And then I said, now, when can we rehearse the band? And she looked at me and she said, why? I said, well, don't we need to rehearse? And she said, no, I've got all the charts here. And I thought, that's it? And she said, yeah. Okay, so I was terrified. We got to Montsalvat and got on, just before we went on, the organisers came and said, look, Channel 2's out there and they're going to be filming, but they're only going to film 2 songs. The first one is to get their levels and their lights right, and the next one they will record, and they may put it to air if it comes out well. Well, outside the temperature was about 105. We were in the Great Hall, no air conditioning. So we get on stage, there's these lights, all the
Yes.
Channel 2 lights overhead. It was so hot. From the first few bars, I thought, I don't believe I'm here. I don't believe this is happening. The band was just to die for. And I'm on cloud 9. And
Yeah.
I just sang my heart out. I knew from the first I could just relax because everything was going to be right.
Yes.
I didn't have to worry about it, you know.
Yeah, you're working with professionals and...
Ronnie Sandlands, Ronnie Trigg, Helen Jarsey, Neil Jarsey.
Yes. Yeah.
What a band, you know.
That's exactly, you could, all you had to do is just...
I just had to sing. And everything was beautiful behind me. And the cameras, the lights didn't go off the camera for a whole hour.
Right.
They recorded the whole session.
Yeah.
And my husband used to work for the ABC. So I went to the cameraman and I said, Ian, I was told you're going to turn the cameras off after 2 songs. And he said, I was going to, and I spoke to the producer and he said, you turn those cameras off, you're sacked.
Well, that's wonderful.
But that was, that's Helen's band. I mean, it was just awesome.
Yes, it was a joy to play with. Yes, that's really wonderful. What happened at Montserrat, it was an amazing festival, that wasn't it?
Fantastic. That was great. And apparently they're doing stuff at Montserrat again now. But anyway, they put all the stuff they recorded of what I call the Pippa Wilson Swingtet to air on Jazz As Now series on the ABC. And I got a call one day, a few years later, from somebody from Mackay, Chris, and said, I taped your performance of Birth of the Blues, and my wife hates you because I listen to you constantly on the video, watch you on the video, and she recorded something over it just so I couldn't have it. So I want to get another one. I said, I don't have one, you know. And so he was actually he was a air traffic controller, so he had access to flights. So he said, when are you next working? I said, I'm working on Sunday. I work, every Sunday. Next thing I know, there's this guy comes up and says, Pippa, and I said, yes. He said, my name's Chris, I'm from Mackay, and I said, you're the one. Because he got my number from someone and rang me. And he turns up at the, because he has, he gets free flights.
Yes.
In some sort of plane when it's going. And he's turned up all over the place at my gigs, and he comes saying, and now I've got to recognise him,
So he's still doing that?
Yeah, well, I worked he hasn't done it for a while.
Yeah.
But when I was working on Hayman, he turned up on Hayman Island.
Yep. Well, that's fantastic, isn't it? So we've talked a little bit about some of your musical influences and the people that have on. So tell us a little bit about some of the highlights of your career. I mean, you've had so many highlights, but what stands out?
Well, one of the great gigs I had was in about 2002. We got an email. We'd like Pippa to quote for a gig in Kuala Lumpur. I said, okay. I called Caroline, Madam Manager, and I said, what do you make of this? And she said, oh, okay. And it said, you'll be performing at a first anniversary dinner which will include, the guests will include royalty, dignitaries, and society's elite. We both looked at each other and said, this is a joke.
An early scam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody's, just pulling our leg. And she said, no, let's reply. And she replied, because she does all that stuff. And she replied, we go, do you want Pippa or the whole band? No, we want the whole band. It ended up, it took us about 2 or 3 months to actually, emails backwards and forwards. And they just wouldn't give us, wouldn't say definitely yes. And they finally said yes. We got there and we were told that, that these people don't clap, so don't be insulted. After the first song, the whole room was just, were applauding, and we thought, wow. at the end of the organisers came up and said, we've never seen a reception like that. It's, you know, it was fantastic, and we nearly didn't give you the job because you were so cheap that we thought that, you know, you wouldn't be any good. So that was fun. And we had a rehearsal right in the afternoon because there was this huge stage which I didn't want.
This is at the Sheraton.
Yeah.
Yep.
Shangri-La, I think.
Shangri-La?
Shangri-La or Sheraton? I can't remember now. Anyway, this huge stage in the ballroom, and there was only 300 guests. So I said, oh, that's very far removed from everyone, you know. This is jazz, it has to be intimate. Yeah. Oh, we can put a small stage. So they built another small stage around the dance floor.
Yeah.
Much lower and more in. And I said, oh, what would, you know, when I start, I'll start off on the big stage and walk down those steps and get to the band. What they didn't rehearse was the smoke machine, right? So I start the song and all this smoke pours out around my feet. I had to walk downstairs and there's this smoke, you know,
all down where you were supposed to be walking.
And I had no idea where the stairs were. So I'm creeping my foot along thinking, jeez, what are they doing to me? You know? Finally got down. I couldn't, well, we timed it and everything, where I'd start and where I'd be in sort of adjacent to the band so I can conduct the first chord. Yeah. Because I start ad lib and conduct it. And I had to lean forward because I didn't make it to my spot.
Oh, right. Oh, that's wonderful.
I thought,
and so that really surprised that to be in a situation like that where people say nobody's going to applaud and you get it
was just amazing. We were blown away. I don't know about the band. I had a fabulous band with me. I had Craig Schneider with me. Yeah. Neil Jowsey, Ian Hillings, Ronnie Trigg. Yeah. And of course Ronnie Sandlands.
Yes, well, you can't go wrong with those. Yeah. Tell us about involvement in the Opera House with
my goodness. The Opera House, that was, I got involved with a theatre, a church group theatre thing, and Margaret Spicer had written a rock opera, Paul, and I was singing that, and we performed it here once in Melbourne, and then we went to the Opera House, and it was about 2 or 3 months after the first performance, and when I got there I was a little bit pregnant. So we had to alter my costume. I was about 3 or 4 months pregnant, I think. May, June, July, August, September, 4 months pregnant. And so that wasn't hard, altered the thing.
That must have been a thrill to actually stand at that stage there.
What a room to work. Yeah. Just awesome, the acoustics and everything else.
A really unique experience. And so the musicians that you played with along the way have changed, but you had, you know, people like Ron Trigg, you know, he was, and Neil Jowsey and Helen, they were...
Well, that was the swingtet.
Yes.
Helen Jowsey was my musical director. She wrote all my charts.
Yes.
You know, and you asked me earlier, how did I pick the songs? People would request songs. And I'd say, okay, next show I do, I'll do it. If you're there, remind me and I'll learn it, you know. And that's how most of my songs were, my repertoire was you know.
Requested, people like. And of course you had, you know, if you pick the Great American Songbook, you really can't go wrong, can you?
True.
You know, there's so many fantastic tunes that were written and still being played today.
There's one that gets constantly requested, and I've never had, you know, haven't done it, and that's New York, New York.
New York. Yeah,
I want to hear that, and I don't do it. You know, it's just daunting. And the other one was another. Oh, there's a few like that. Cry Me a River. I do it now, but you know, things like that. Crazy was another one. Somebody came up to me at the pub I was working in, and he said, "Do you do Crazy?" And I said, "What, Patsy Cline one? That's country and western, it's a country song. I'm jazz singer." "Oh, you do it great, I said, "Look, I know the song, but I don't know all the words." The next thing, she brings all the words written out on a serviette, and said, "Now you got the words. Can you sing it for me?" So I said to Helen, I said, "Do you know?" She said, "Yeah, we could do it." She said, "You'd probably do it in this key," and she played. I said, "Yeah, it sounds right." And we just did it.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been a gig that I've done since that day that somebody hasn't asked for Crazy.
Crazy.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, well that's...
So, I mean, Helen did a lovely jazzy sort of version of it, it was
right,
just very different to Patsy
Well,
Cline.
you were certainly fortunate to have her as your musical director, weren't you?
Look,
that's
I was
really...
an amateur when I started working.
Yes.
She dragged me up on my bootstraps,
Yeah.
told me about lots of things, just very quietly, just put these little
do
things
this
in, and don't do this and don't do that. And
yes. Well, one of the things that I noticed just looking through all the database is that you had a very big involvement with the jazz convention over, a long period of time there. So,
okay, that is really where things started to get interesting for me for jazz, because I was working, I think it was once a week, with New Harlem as a guest vocalist, and I'd do 6 numbers, that was it. And then I met Gretel there.
yes,
And
Gretel James.
Gretel James.
Yep.
Very involved with the museum here. And Ian Henderson. And they were there, as they followed New Harlem and loved their jazz. And Gretel said, "You've got to go to the convention this year." And I said, "Oh, Gretel, I can't. I'm on my own with 2 kids, and I can't afford to go to a convention, No, we're taking a bus up, and there'll be room on the bus, come on." I said, "Gretel, I can't, I can't afford to go anywhere." At that stage, I was, living on a supporting parent benefit with, a gig every, week or I think it might have even been just a fortnight. But anyway, whatever it was, I asked Mum, I said, "Any chance you could look after kids for a week?" And she said, "Yes, I'd love to." So I left the kids. And right up to the 24th when they were leaving, the 23rd, Gretel rang and said, "Pippa, we still got a seat for you. You have to come." And I'd already asked Mum if she'd look after the kids. So I said, "Well, okay, tell me how much it's going to cost." "Nothing. You just have to get on that bus. You've got to be there." And it was the dicky seat next to the driver.
Yeah.
And Ian was driving the bus.
Yeah.
"We can't sell the seat. You'll have to take it." I said, "I haven't got accommodation." She said, "No, I've got a room. You can come share." Do you know they didn't charge me for the room? They didn't charge me for the bus. All I had to do was pay for my footage. I'd have to do for
So which
anywhere at home.
convention was this?
That was Forbes.
Forbes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I was hooked
Forbes
on
was
conventions.
1980.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was hooked on
And was so you then got to sing with lots of...
Well, Ian and Gretel went round all the bands and said, "Can she sit in with you?" And they all said no, except Roger Bell. "Well, can she sing?" And they said, "She can sing. You will not be disappointed. Please, let her sing with you." "All right, get her to come and see me at such and such, So I went along. "What do you want to sing, honey?" Gave him choice of 2 songs. "Don't suppose you know what key you do it in?" I told him. "Okay. Well, that's a good start, We'll do this one." I said, "Okay." So got on stage, did that one, and then when I finished, I was a newcomer,
Yes.
and it was probably a half full room, and finished, and he said, and I knew you sing and you get off.
Yeah.
You don't hang around,
Yeah.
Just go. So I was walking off stage, and the crowd were very appreciative, so he said, "Maybe we should get her back to do another one," So that's how it all started for me with the conventions
Right.
and everything. So it was.
Yeah. Well, you went to lots of conventions because you were certainly at the 85 one in Ballarat and Goulburn 2007, Melbourne 2009, Stall 2004. So you really got into it.
I see. In the early stages, in the 80s, I was so I had to work, take whatever work came in, because I was still on my own with you know, with 2 kids to raise and a mortgage to pay by then. So I couldn't afford to go to a lot of the festivals.
Yes.
The convention being at Christmas, I could get away for a while because there was not a lot of work at that stage, except for New Year's Eve. So I'd usually have to come back for New Year's Eve. So once in come 2000, I decided to sort of retire, but I didn't because I got withdrawal symptoms. And then I started taking jobs that I really wanted to do with bands that I really wanted to work with. And so it became, I freed myself up a lot and I could go away on weekends.
Yes.
I was no longer working, you know, Friday night, Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon, Sunday night.
Yes.
So, you know, that was my bread and butter. When I stopped having to do that, I could go away to the festivals.
Yes.
And that's when I started doing festivals.
Yes. So you went to a few of them. I know you went to Cool Art was one you went to.
Oh yeah, I used to do Cool Art for quite a few years.
Mildura.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that was fun.
Yeah. And did you take your own bands to those? Yeah. You did. So that was it. Yeah. Was
that
it?
was a swing tet, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, that band, I miss them.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, Ronnie's gone to God now, and gee, I miss him.
Yeah.
Ronnie Trigg.
Yeah. That's right. Exactly.
Doesn't
They were sort of the backbones of your music, weren't they? You more recently worked with Anita and her father Kim.
Oh, I've worked with Kim a lot. Even, you know, when I first started playing jazz, if Helen wasn't available, she was doing something else, I'd bring Kim.
Yes.
And so I worked with him quite a bit in the early days. And it was, and then I met Anita. And I think it was Inverloch. We were both there, and somebody said, Anita and I were sort of, there was a bit of banter going on, and somebody said, oh, you two should sing a song together, you know. So I said, I looked at Anita, I said, do you want to come up and do a song with me? She said, really? Okay, what do you want to sing, you know? And we did, I think we did Pippa Blackbird or something, and it was, you know, I just sang the harmony, and we sent to blend, and everybody, when are you guys going to do a gig together, you know, like a whole gig? So we got together with Kim and we put some songs together and we decided, and we do it at festivals, and then it was
Alan Richards.
Well, we work with Anita's band, which is Kim, Alan Richards.
Sometimes Barry Boys.
Sometimes Barry Boys.
Yeah. Leon Hill.
Leon Hill on bass, yes, and it was a good little band. Very.
And are you still doing that sort of?
No, we decided we'll do 2 gigs a year.
Yeah.
Because the jazz clubs kept asking us, you know, can we book the duets? And we said we'll limit it to 2 gigs a year, because it took a lot of time and effort to get the songs, learn them, get the harmonies together, and, you know, rehearse them and get the phrasing right and all this sort of stuff. Because my phrasing right now.
Yeah.
And Anita's fantastic to work with.
Yes.
Absolutely. She's
and
such a beautiful voice.
Yes. And Kim with his accompaniment.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
A master singer.
So we did two a year, and then we had COVID hit us, so there was a lot of jazz clubs that had booked us but couldn't go ahead. So then when we came out of lockdown, we actually did about 3 or 4, I think.
Yes.
And decided that it was time to call it quits, because we needed to put more, you know, effort in, more songs, new songs, all this.
Yes, been able to do it was time.
And it was time.
Now,
yeah.
I noticed just you brought along some of these CDs. Do you want to just tell us how these came about? Your
Well,
own
the first
personal
one,
CD?
This one
Yes.
was
Singing the Blues Away?
Swinging the Blues Away. That started off when after Montsalvat, I said to the band, I said, if I get some work, will you do it with me? I said, you get the work, we'll be there, you know. So, and then I thought, this band is so good, we've got to do a little, what do you call it, a demo tape.
Yes.
And the boys, Ronnie and Neil were working, I think, with Kamal on a tour, and they were in Shepparton, and Bruce Adderley, who recorded them, he built a studio in Shepparton, and he's a fantastic sound engineer.
Yep. So that's where that one came about. That was 1989, that one.
That's right.
Yep,
yeah,
that's good. So then there was then there was the Errand Girl for Swing.
Yeah, well, that was only going to be 4 songs.
Yes.
And we'd set aside, you know, Bruce had set aside 3 hours for us to put these four songs down. And every time we did one song, Bruce would say, I think you should come in. Helen said, you don't want another one? He said, no, I think you should come in and listen. So we'd go in and we'd listen, couldn't fault it, first take,
Yep.
done. Okay, let's do the next one. And that went on for 4 songs, and he said, guys, you can't stop at these. You can't stop here. We've got another 2 hours left. You know, put another 4 down.
Yeah.
So we did. And he said, you've got to make an album out of this.
Yeah.
And most of those songs were just one take. The band just did.
Yeah, just wonderful things and so.
Absolutely. He showed us, you know, on the screen when they're recording, they've got this screen that shows all the instruments and these little lines that go up and down.
Yes, yes.
And he said, I've never had this. He said, have a look at this. Every stop, everything was all lined up. The band was so tight.
Yeah.
You know, I Cried for You. End of the song. Bang! It was like a cracker going off.
Yeah.
Where everybody stopped. It was first take.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just you know. And I sort of thought, oh, that's good. We don't have to do it again. And I said, you know, why does it take so long to record an album? He said, because most people don't have your band.
That's right.
You know.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Because they're so tight.
Yes. I noticed on the other one, the gospel, according to, you've got a few other musicians on it. There was Bruce
Gardner.
Yes,
Bruce
Gardner,
Gardner,
and there's
Harry Price.
Craig Shiner. Yes, Harry. Yes.
But the gospel album came about because I've been working pretty hard, and I said to Carol, let's just, we didn't have any bookings for Easter, took off. We said, we'll just go for a drive. So we just went into the country for a drive and, you know, lunch somewhere and heading home, and we said, oh, it's getting late, let's just pull over and stop somewhere, you know. So we pulled into it happened to be Deniliquin at about 8 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night or something. Have you got a room? Oh yeah, we've just had a cancellation, we've got 1 room. I said, great, we'll take it, you know. So I wake up in the morning and there's all these jazz people around. I thought, what? It was the Deniliquin Jazz Festival.
Oh, right.
I said to Caroline, I am not working. And she said, and anyway, she comes back on Saturday afternoon. She said, you're doing the gospel service tomorrow. I said, I don't sing gospel. What are you talking about? And it was the funniest thing. So the rest of the day, Saturday, we ran around churches and looking at hymn books and getting, talking to people who might have known some words, and got I think 3 or 4 songs.
Did you do
down.
Amazing Grace?
I did Amazing Grace, and Just a Closer Walk, and Swing Low, and stuff that I'd known from going to church, and by just songs that I had sort of knew. And it was Maury Fabricant on piano.
Ah. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I did Amazing Grace in 4/4 instead of 3/4.
Right.
He said, and he said, oh, Pippa, I'm so sorry. I couldn't get my head around that 4/4 Amazing Grace.
Yeah. Oh, that's...
And it was, but it was, you know, it was just so good. And everybody kept asking, you know, for all these songs that I sang in the church. So I decided, okay,
Yeah,
let's do an album
you
of
put
all
out those ones there. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so that's
yeah.
how that one came about.
Yeah, well, that's good. And the other one was singing into to midnight.
Yeah, well, I've done the gospel, which was the first like traditional jazz feel
Yep.
album, and I thought I'd like to do a late night one, you know.
Yep.
And so that's a little bit more subdued.
Yeah, well, that's got some very good people on it too, hasn't it?
Oh yeah.
Once again, all your regulars, Ronnie Trigg and Joe Epps on trombone, Helen. Yeah. Well, that's really good. Now, Pippa, tell us about your world tour that you did.
Well, you know, Caroline is my manager. Well, she looks after me. She's my minder. But she, you know, she's got the business mind. Like she was a body corporate manager, and you know, she's used to dealing with business people. So when she came to start working with me, I'd write all these emails to send out to different companies, and then she'd look at it and she'd say, "Why are you saying all that? You know, you don't need to say all that. They won't even read it. Just put down the facts. Take all that. Take that out." I said, "You do it." So she said, "Okay." She sat down, blah blah blah, bang, done, and she'd send it off, and you know, she was like, she knew how to deal with business people. She said,
Yeah.
they have no time to read all the nitty-gritty
Yeah.
stuff. They just need some facts. That's it.
Yeah.
So when she started working with me, then we decided we'd go overseas. She took her long service leave, and so we travelled and sang in Los Angeles, I think. Yeah, Los Angeles, and Canada, and we went expressly to do the Edinburgh Jazz Festival.
Yes.
And from there we went to Paris and
Did
Spain,
you take
all
any-
sorts of places.
did you
But
take-
I'd work one night, and the rest of the week we'd you know, be tourists.
Yes.
It was great.
Did you take any musicians with you?
No, it was
No.
just
So
no.
you just
Yeah.
whatever bands were there.
I worked with some amazing bands.
Yeah.
You know, and there was once we were staying in a place in Scotland at Glen Eagles, and it was Saturday night we went to Friday night we got there, and there was a young girl playing guitar and singing, and we said, let's go and have a drink in the bar and listen, you know, and she was okay, you know, she was a nice little singer, played guitar, and so we had to go into the office or something, and Caroline's parents were with us on this trip as well. We met them in Scotland. They're Scottish, and so we went into the office to find out about something, and I said, do you have music on Friday, Saturday nights, or we normally do, but she's going away. She's got some other work that she's got, and she won't be here next week. Then of course Sheila says, "Have I got news for you?" You know? And before I know it, I was working. And so I'd been to the Mutual Acoustic Jazz Appreciation or Music Appreciation Society or something like that, in a pub around the corner from where we were. And Caroline said, she sings, because it was just a whole bunch of musicians. It was just a jam session, you know.
Yes.
And I did Sweet Georgia and something else, and you know, and it was great. And we got their numbers and everything, you know. And when I got this job, I rang the guy and I said, "Look, I need a PA. Can I borrow your, can I hire your PA?" "Oh yeah, we'll bring it round." They brought it round, nice little PA, and it was great. the bar was about
Yes.
not much bigger than this room, and the dining room was next door. And I started singing, and all these people after dinner kept coming in, and the manager said, "We have never had so many people in that bar ever," because they heard the music and they were just drawn in, you know.
All drifting in.
Yeah,
Well,
it was just
that's
awesome.
fantastic. Well,
Yeah.
what a wonderful experience. Now, one of the things I just acknowledge is on behalf of everybody in the museum here is that your contribution to singing at the tours that we have here, the people
love
that
it.
come and there, and so we should just thank you for doing that because it's.
That's my pleasure. I feel very honoured to, you know.
Yeah. Well,
to be asked to
it's
do
great,
it,
and
yeah.
everybody, the feedback we get from that is really fantastic. Now, tell us about it. What do you think about the future of jazz in Australia?
I don't think jazz will ever die. You know, the songs they wrote back in the day, they're too good. That's why they've lasted so long.
Yes.
And even the younger kids now are realising that, you know,
Yes.
there's something in this.
Yes.
And they're coming to gigs, and I love seeing young people in my audience. You know.
Yes.
In fact, when I was working at the Green Room up at the top of Collins Street, I worked there for 4 years, Friday and Saturday nights. And you get these young couple come and sit down, and you think, they'll be gone in a few, you know. They come in to have a cocktail, impress the girlfriend, and then go off to the discos, you see.
Yes.
And they'll be gone the next. And this couple of times, in fact, this one particular time, this couple were there, and I said, they'll be gone, you know. They're there the next break. Went another break, came back, they're still there. So I went and talked to them in the next break, you know, and I said, didn't expect you, I thought you'd be going off. They said, we were going to the, you know, it's such and such a nightclub or whatever, but we thought we'd come and have a drink first. What do you call this kind of music? It's, you know, it's great. And I said, it's jazz. I thought I hated jazz. This is great. You know, I thought, yes!
Yeah, another convert.
Another convert,
Well,
yeah.
I think the thing that really strikes you now is that there's so many talented young players around, there's musicians
well,
around.
that's the thing. I mean, that's how I started, because I didn't want to do any schoolwork.
Yes.
I played music.
Yeah.
Learned to play guitar. And they, you know, since it became a school, part of the school curriculum, you can opt to do music, they go home and they practice for 2 hours. I'm doing my homework, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they've got great chops, and they're just amazing.
Yeah.
All they lack is the experience now,
Yeah,
you know.
that's right. And the lack of venues is also, that's...
Unfortunately, the kids killed it because they'd go and work for nothing. They just wanted to play.
Yeah.
And they'd go to a public and say, can we come and play here?
Yeah.
And they'd do it for a
but-
beer and a sandwich or something.
Yeah, instead of being able to do it. We've had some, you know, there's a really lot of good generation, younger people playing now. People like the Shiraz and people like John Hunt and Cade Brown, and these are really talented people who can hold their own anywhere.
That's right. Yeah.
So, yeah,
There's a lot of.
I'm glad.
And
that
it's
you
lovely to see the younger bands that are coming in and playing traditional jazz.
Yes.
And it's not that old oompa sort of.
Yes.
They've got good chops, and they play well, and they're tight, and they're playing it well. So, you know, some people say, oh, trad jazz, you know, it's really old hat. But if it's played well, it's so good.
That's right, exactly. And of course, there's a whole lot of people who are in the modern jazz as well, and that's okay. That's progressive how it is.
Sure.
Sometimes. Not necessarily things that you and I would probably sit down and do a lot of listening to.
I don't like a lot of the off-the-wall stuff, you know, the really modern jazz that's sort of, to me...
Yeah.
When I hear a solo, I like to hear the melody behind the solo, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas they just go off and play a lot of licks, and I can't understand it. And I don't take away from their expertise or their chops, you know, they're good musos.
Yeah.
And you've got to admire them.
Yeah.
But I think it's just me. I don't understand it. I'm not a musician.
Yeah, so that you... Yeah.
I can't get into that,
They're doing it. Do you think there's such a thing as an Australian sound in jazz?
Look, I think that music is actually a universal language.
Yeah.
Because I've been, like, all over the world, Japan and Indonesia and Kuala Lumpur, all those, you know, a lot of places where they don't speak the language. You know, they don't speak English much. I don't speak their language.
But they speak
But they
music.
speak music. I'll say a song, you know, I went and sat in with a few bands, and wherever I went, they'd say, from Australia, you know, Caroline would go and say, she's from Australia, she's a jazz singer, you know, you want to get her to sing. So they'd come and talk to me, and I think, why did you do that? You know. But anyway, that's beside the point. They say, what songs do you know? And I'd rattle off a few, and oh, yeah. Key, and I'd tell them a key. Oh yeah. And away we'd go. I'd count it in, and away, no rehearsal, nothing, and they just played it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And some of the songs I do a stop chorus and that, and I sort of said, you know, stop chorus, you understand? You know, and I'd sing a bit of the song and I'd go like this, and then start, oh, yeah. So, you know.
So they knew it, yeah.
So, and it was just one of those things that language wasn't a barrier when it comes to music. So.
Well, I think you're very fortunate that you've had this wonderful ability and been able to open the door to places all over the world, and it's been a wonderful experience for you.
It has.
So I think, just in wrapping up, Pippa, I want to thank you for taking the time to come here today. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure.
And
I feel very honoured, Mel.
yeah, and we've learned so much about your career, and I think whilst you're very played down your career, it's been very impressive by any standards around here, and I think today will be a very nice record of your musical career. So thanks very much for coming.
Thank you.
You can always find me down at Smokey Joe's. That's where all the hip and groovy people go. If you want variety, take a tip. Hey, call for me. I'm an errand girl for rhythm.